Well, good day to you. I hope you're doing okay. I want to tell you about this book that I came across about 25 years ago. It's called Precious Remedies Against Satan's Devices. There it is. It's a little paperback that I was able to pick up for, a few bucks many years ago, but was incredibly impactful in my life. And I think is one of the important books that all Christians should be exposed to. So I started recording this a couple of years ago, hoping people would be able to listen to the great content of this book. And it was done in the 1600s, so the language is difficult. So I tried, I don't want to say translating, but modernizing the language, and it was a lot of work, and I don't think I was doing a very good job, so I kind of put it aside and gave up on it. But now there's a ministry called Modern Puritans. You can find them at modernpuritans.com. And they're using, I think they're using AI to modernize some of these great books from the past. So I got something on my email about that and signed up for it, and I've downloaded the book, and I'm going to read it to you. Again, I think it's fantastic, and by the way, there's nothing about these videos that's interesting in themselves. I'm just going to read a book, but I am an audio learner, and so I am constantly listening to sermons or books or whatever else, devotions and so on, as I'm doing other things, whether that's exercising or working around the home, shaving, taking a shower, whatever it might be. And I just find that to be a tremendous opportunity for Christians to get the Word of God into their heads while they're doing something else with their hands, essentially. So here we go. It's video, but not that it has to be. Hopefully you won't be looking at me, but you will be listening to the words here from Thomas Brooks. Thomas Brooks, a great Puritan. His great concern was the temptations that we receive from Satan, the danger of Satan in the life of the Christian. And these are remedies, as he called them, against Satan's devices. So let's begin. He's going to lay out the device, the satanic device designed to hinder Christians and draw them into sin or whatever. And then he's going to present the remedy. So we're in chapter 1, device 1, to present the bait and hide the hook. His first trick, meaning Satan, to lure the soul into sin is to show the bait and hide the hook, to present the golden cup and hide the poison, to show the sweetness, pleasure, and profit that might come from sinning while hiding the wrath and misery that will definitely follow. By this trick, he deceived our first parents, Genesis chapter 3, verses 4 through 5. And the serpent said to the woman, "You will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God. Here is the bait, the sweetness, the pleasure, the profit. But he hides the hook, the shame, the wrath, and the loss that would certainly follow. There is an opening of the eyes of the mind to contemplation and joy, and there is an opening of the eyes of the body to shame and confusion. He promises them the former, but intends the latter, and he so cheats them, giving them an apple in exchange for paradise, just as he deceives thousands nowadays. Satan easily tricks us, and then, with his golden baits, leads us and leaves us in a fool's paradise. He promises the soul honor, pleasure, and profit, but he pays the soul with the greatest contempt, shame, and loss possible. With a golden bait, he tried to catch Christ in Matthew chapter 4, verses 8 and 9. He shows him the beauty and the allure of a tempting world, which would certainly have captivated many worldly hearts. But here, the devil's fire fell on wet tinder and therefore did not catch. These tempting objects did not win over Christ's affections or dazzle his eyes. Though many have eternally died from the wound of the eye and fallen forever by this vile temptress, the world, who by showing her two fair breasts of profit and pleasure has wounded their souls and cast them into utter ruin. She has, with glitter of her pomp and advancement, slain millions like the serpent Scytale, which when it cannot catch fleeing travelers, astonishes and amazes them with its beautiful colors, so they have no power to move away until it stings them to death. Adversity has slain her thousands, but prosperity her 10,000s. Remedies. 1. First, stay as far away from this sin as possible, and don't be tempted by the alluring bait that Satan uses to trap you. For this, you have Romans 12:9. Abhor that which is evil, cleave to that which is good. When we encounter something extremely evil and against our nature, we naturally abhor it and try to get as far away from it as we can. The Greek word used here for abhor is very significant. It means to hate it as much as hell itself, to hate it with horror. Anselm used to say that if he had to choose between seeing the shame of sin on one side and the pains of hell on the other, he would rather be thrust into hell without sin than go to heaven with sin. Such was his intense hatred and detestation of sin. It is the wisest and safest course to stay as far away from sin as possible, not to go near the house of the harlot, but to flee from all appearances of evil. The best way to avoid falling into the pit is to keep the greatest distance from it. Anyone bold enough to dance on the edge of the pit may find through painful experience that it is just for God to let them fall into it. Joseph keeps his distance from sin and from playing with Satan's golden baits and stands firm. David, however, draws near, plays with the bait, and falls, swallowing both bait and hook. David comes close to the snare and is caught in it, leading to the breaking of his bones, the wounding of his conscience, and the loss of his connection with God. Sin is a plague, yes, the greatest and most infectious plague in the world, and yet how few actually tremble at it or keep their distance from it. Don't you know that a little yeast leavens the whole batch of dough? 1 Corinthians 5:6. As soon as one sin took hold of Adam's heart, all sin entered his soul and spread throughout it. How has Adam's one sin spread over all of humanity? Therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man and death through sin, and in this way death came to all people because all sinned. Romans 5:12. How does the father's sin infect the child, the husband's infect the wife, the master's infect the servant? The sin is in one person's heart and is capable of infecting the whole world. It has such a spreading and infectious nature. The story of the Italian who first made his enemy deny God and then stabbed him, thus murdering both body and soul at once, shows the perfect malignity of sin. That what has been spoken on this matter may persuade you to keep your distance from sin. Remedy number 2. The second remedy is to remember that sin is like a bittersweet treat. The sweetness you think you taste in sin will quickly disappear, leaving behind lasting shame, sorrow, horror, and terror. Though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, though he bide it under his tongue, though he spare it and forsake it not, but keep it still within his mouth, yet his meat in his bowels is turned. It is the gall of asps within him. Job 20:12-14. Forbidden profits and pleasures are most appealing to vain people who think madness is fun, etc. Many are eager to mess with the daily morsels of sin which don't nourish but tear apart and consume the belly and the soul that takes them in. Many eat on earth what they will digest in hell. Sin's deadly morsels will deceive those who devour them. Adam's apple was a bitter sweet. Esau's meal was bitter sweet. The Israelites' quail, a bitter sweet. Jonathan's honey, a bitter sweet. And Adonijah's delicacies, a bitter sweet. After the meal is over, the bill comes. People shouldn't think they can dance and dine with the devil and then have supper with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. To feed on the poison of asps and expect that the viper's tongue won't kill them. When the asp stings someone, it first tickles them, making them laugh until the poison slowly reaches the heart, and then it hurts more than it ever delighted. Sin is the same. It may please a little at first, but it will deeply pain the soul in the end. Yes, if there was even the slightest real delight in sin, there could be no perfect hell where people are most perfectly tormented by their sin. The third remedy against this trick of Satan is to seriously consider that sin will bring about the greatest and saddest losses to our divine souls. It will lead to the loss of that divine favor that is better than life, the loss of that joy that is indescribable and full of glory, the loss of that peace that surpasses understanding, and the loss of those divine influences that have refreshed, quickened, raised, strengthened, and gladdened the soul. It will also lead to the loss of many outward desirable blessings that the soul might have otherwise enjoyed. It was a wise and meaningful reply from an English captain at the loss of Calais, when a proud Frenchman mockingly asked, "When will you take back Calais?" He replied, "When your sins outweigh ours." O England, my constant prayer for you is that you do not sin away your blessings into the hands of those who cannot call mercy mercy, and who would take joy in nothing more than to see your sorrow and misery, and to see that your hand make you naked, that he has clothed you with much mercy and grace. The fourth remedy against this trick of Satan is to seriously consider that sin is extremely deceitful and bewitching. Sin comes from the greatest deceiver. It is his own creation, the root of all deceit in the world, and it is inherently very deceitful. But exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. Hebrews 3:13. Sin will kiss the soul, pretend to be good for the soul, and yet betray the soul forever. Like Delilah smiling at us to betray us into the hands of the devil, as she did Samson into the hands of the Philistines. Sin gives Satan power over us and an advantage to accuse us and claim us as his own. Sin is very bewitching. It enchants the soul when it takes control, making it impossible for the soul to leave it, even if it means eternal destruction. Sin so bewitches the soul that it makes the soul call evil good and good evil, bitter sweet and sweet bitter, light darkness and darkness light. A soul bewitched by sin will resist to the death even against God. Let God strike, wound, and cut you to the bone, yet the bewitched soul doesn't care, doesn't fear, and continues in wickedness, as seen in Pharaoh, Balaam, and Judas. Tell the bewitched soul that sin is a viper and that it will certainly kill if not kill. That sin often kills secretly, insensibly, eternally. Yet the bewitched soul cannot and will not cease from sin. When the physicians told Theodamus that unless he abstained from drunkenness and uncleanness, he would lose his eyes, his heart was so bewitched by his sins that he answered, "Then farewell, sweet light." He would rather lose his eyes than leave his sins. Similarly, a person bewitched by sin would rather lose God, Christ, heaven, and his own soul than part with his sin. So always be cautious of playing with or nibbling at Satan's golden baits.